Welcome back everyone, and this is part 2 of my video lesson on contrasting with alternatives for the word despite. And in part 1 we looked at despite, but, in spite of, and although. So if you haven't already seen that video, go check it out now. But in this part 2, we will look at even though, however, and nevertheless, no matter, regardless of, as well as, and yet. And now, let's get started with part 2. So let me start the examples by saying that even though is basically the same as although. So, although it was raining, we went for a walk outside. Even though it was raining, we went for a walk outside. Now in both cases we can also reverse the clauses. So we could say we went for a walk outside although it was raining, and we went for a walk outside even though it was raining. So that's simple enough. Although and even though are used the same way. A similar case is with however and nevertheless. In most cases, however goes in the middle of the two clauses to show the contrast, and this is the same with nevertheless. I had already seen the movie before, however, I wanted to see it again. I had already seen the movie before, nevertheless, I wanted to see it again. Now, however is more common than nevertheless, which is more formal and perhaps used more in writing. And in writing, both however and nevertheless are positioned between commas. Next up we have no matter. For example, no matter the cost, I want it. No matter how hard he tries, he continues to fail his driving test. Instead of no matter, you could also say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how hard he tries, he continues to fail his driving test. Another way to express that last example could be, regardless of how hard he tries, he continues to fail his driving test. And again, the two clauses can be reversed with regardless of in the middle. He continues to fail his driving test regardless of how hard he tries. Regardless of the votes, we will accept the result. Or perhaps, regardless of the results, he refused to accept the situation. Sound familiar? And to remind you, we are using alternatives to despite. That sentence would also work this way. Despite the results, he refused to accept the situation. And for this video, the final alternative is and yet. And this one, when spoken, can take a more surprised or incredulous intonation. For example, he lost the election and yet he refused to accept the results. And in other examples, it was pouring with rain outside and yet they had to take the dog out. There were many health warnings against gathering in large groups, and yet a lot of people seem to ignore them. Grammatically, you can reverse the clauses. However, be careful. In the previous examples, there was already a situation happening or something that had happened before the other action in the sentence. And that is the best order to keep when using and yet. Right then, so between parts 1 and part 2 of this lesson, we have seen several good alternatives for using despite in contrasting sentences. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and hit the subscribe button. And for my Patreon supporters, there is an additional worksheet and practice activity on this subject available now. And for everyone, many thanks for watching this video. Check out all of the links in the description, as I'm sure you'll find something of interest to you. And for now, I'm going to say, go practice your English, and I'll catch you next time. All the best. Take care. Cheers.